The PlayStation 5 is Sony's latest console, and since its 2020 launch, it's built a solid library of games. Now that the console is well into its lifespan, it has plenty to offer gamers looking for a challenge. Many of the hardest games on the PS5 aren't overly punishing, but that doesn't mean they're not tough. Games like Demon's Souls and Horizon Forbidden West will push gamers to their limits. Sackboy: A Big Adventure is a 2020 platformer that stars Sackboy of Little Big Planet fame. In what would ultimately be his only full-fledged platforming outing, Sackboy has to stop the nefarious Vex from enslaving all the Sack people. While Sackboy: A Big Adventure might look and sound easy, the game is much harder than it looks. This specifically manifests in the game's final set of bosses, which are hard to a rage-breaking point. Astro Bot is a 2024 platformer that features Astro Bot, a PlayStation enthusiast robot embarking on a journey to rescue his robot friends from the evil space bully Nebulax. Players search the game's worlds for VIP robots from all the best PlayStation games, like God of War and Uncharted. Even though it's a whimsical game, Astro Bot can be downright nasty in some areas. This is true of Astro Bot's challenge levels, which will put any player's platforming skills to the test. Stranding 2: On the Beach is a 2025 action-adventure game that takes place 11 months after the first game. Here, protagonist Sam Porter Bridges has to trek through Australia in order to save humanity from extinction. The first Death Stranding game wasn't exactly known for being forgiving, and Death Stranding 2 is even harder. This is especially the case with the cargo missions, which are punishing enough to test the patience of any player. If Dark Souls is a game of patience, Nioh 2 is a game of math and high-speed reflexes. The difficulty here doesn't just come from the enemies, it comes from the sheer amount of stuff you have to manage. You've got 3 different combat stances, a stamina management system called Key Pulse that you have to tap after every single swing, and yokai counters, where you literally have to headbutt a demon to stop its ultimate move. If you play this like a standard RPG, you will get destroyed. It demands that you use every tool in your kit, ninjutsu, magic, and demon abilities, just to stay level with a basic grunt. It's overwhelming at first, but once the combat clicks, you feel like a literal god of war. Just be prepared to spend a lot of time in the menus.
Okay, look, I know what you're thinking.
How is the orange furball harder than a samurai game? Trust me, Crash 4 is a different kind of pain. The base game is a fun challenge, but if you're going for the Platinum Trophy or the insanely perfect relics, it becomes one of the most stressful experiences on the PS5. You have to finish massive 10-minute-long levels without dying a single time while collecting every single box. The late-game levels like Cortex Castle require pixel-perfect jumps and constant power-up swapping that will make your hands cramp. It's a test of pure endurance and muscle memory. One tiny slip-up on the final jump and you've just wasted 10 minutes of your life. It is deceptively, heartbreakingly difficult.
Sifu is a game that literally punishes you with old age. Every time you die, you get older. You start as a 20-year-old student, and if you aren't careful, you'll be an 80-year-old man by the end of the second level. The genius and the cruelty of this game is that it forces you to go back and replay levels until you can finish them perfectly. You can't just scrape by a boss at age 70 because you'll have no life left for the next stage. It forces you to learn how to duck, weave, and parry like an actual martial artist. It's not about button mashing, it's about reading the enemy's shoulders and knowing exactly when to move. It's incredibly satisfying when you finally walk through a room of 10 guys without taking a scratch, but the road to get there is paved with a lot of game over screens.
Demon's Souls is the 2020 remake of the original 2009 game. From Software games are famous for their difficulty, and neither version of Demon's Souls is meant for novice gamers. Players need top-tier reflexes to defeat enemies in Demon Souls, and healing items are hard to come by. Not helping is the world tendency system, which can increase the difficulty of certain enemies.
Pacific Drive is a 2024 survival game that has players driving along the Olympic Peninsula. Along the way, players must avoid both natural and supernatural disasters, all the while conserving their car's fuel. Even though it has survival mechanics, Pacific Drive may not seem like a hard game at first. However, since the car the player drives isn't very reliable, things can get tricky, especially when players encounter radiation or other threats. Stellar Blade is a 2024 hack-and-slash game set in the 22nd century. Earth is largely devoid of humanity after a catastrophic invasion. Eve, one of the remaining humans, must fight to ensure that the planet isn't wiped out. It was one of 2024's most popular action games, but that doesn't mean it's easy. Aside from the usual hack-and-slash shenanigans, players must also perfect Stellar Blade's style of combat to survive the game's threats. This involves being as frame-perfect with combos as possible, which is far easier said than done. Rise of the Ronin is an action RPG set during the waning days of Japan's Edo period of relative isolation. The game sees a duo known as the Blade Twins on a mission to overthrow the shogunate. It's based on a real-world period in Japan that was hard on everyone, so it's no surprise that Rise of the Ronin is hard on players too. Players must time their attacks perfectly, even when swarms of enemies are coming straight at them. Baby Steps is a 2025 game made by Bennett Foddy, the creator of famously difficult physics-based games Q-Op and Getting Over It. In Baby Steps, players control someone who is essentially an adult baby and must manually lift their legs to make them walk. Nate, the game's protagonist, can't die, but he will lose progress on his journey if players aren't careful. Not only is he a wobbly walker, but Baby Steps is filled with rough terrain, which makes it even harder for players to reach their destination. Horizon Forbidden West is a 2022 action RPG that takes place 6 months after the previous game, Horizon Zero Dawn. This time, protagonist Aloy has to intercept a deadly virus that kills humans shortly after they are infected. The hardest thing about Horizon Forbidden West is its incredibly overpowered enemies. Many of the game's machines, like the Shell Snapper, have powerful defenses that can only be broken by intricate chain attacks. Returnal is a third-person shooter with roguelike and bullet hell elements. It follows an astronaut who finds herself trapped in a time loop after attempting to land on a mysterious planet. Returnal has one of the best stories in a PS5 game, but due to its difficulty, players might have a hard time experiencing it. The hardest thing about Returnal is that players have to start from scratch if they die even once. Bullet hell segments make staying alive tough, and there are no difficulty settings that could make things easier. Don't let the Pinocchio theme fool you. This game is absolutely brutal. A lot of people call it a Bloodborne clone, but it's actually much more demanding. In Bloodborne, you can dodge your way out of trouble, but Lies of P forces you to stand your ground and parry. The window for a perfect guard is incredibly small. We're talking frames here. If you're a millisecond off, you're either losing health or getting your stance broken. The bosses also love to delay their attacks. They'll wind up, hold it for an extra second to bait your dodge, and then flatten you. It's a game of pure rhythm and nerve. When you finally beat a boss like the Nameless Puppet, you don't just feel like you got lucky, you feel like you actually mastered a machine.